Okay, I'd like to thank everybody for coming out this evening. Can we all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And one thing we do, this is technically a Rotary meeting, so one thing we do at the beginning of each Rotary meeting, we quote the four-way test, which you guys all should have a copy of it. And just pull it up, and I'll go ahead and say it loud. So, number 1, is it the truth? Number 2, is it fair to all concerned? Number 3, will it build goodwill and better friendships? Number 4, will it be beneficial to all concerned? I want to thank, you guys can have a seat, thank you. I want to thank the Newport Dunes, Back Bay Bistro and Tom Giuliani for hosting us tonight. They're normally closed on Monday nights, so they opened up for us. And I want to thank Congressman Dana Rohrabacher and Dr. Sue Savary for taking time out of their very busy schedules to come and let us ask them a few questions. The format tonight is town hall. I'm going to ask everyone to refrain from applause and any comments until the whole night's over. Okay? We're going to have an introduction by each candidate. We flipped a coin. Dr. Savary will go first. Then we will have 8 questions, all asked by Rotarians from District 48, or District 5320, which is in 48. Okay? So we will start with an opening statement from Dr. Sue Savary.
Hello everyone, I am that Sue Savary, and I am delighted to be here in the hall of the Rotary Club. This particular Rotary Club actually is one that I have had many connections with over time, since my very, very good friend Nancy Goodlad and her wonderful husband John Goodlad were members from the time that they moved down to Newport Beach, and their son, their daughter, and the continued members of the family continue to be here. And so I have, along with Mr. John Headland, a very dear friend. I was one of those people, although I don't qualify as a Glendalian. I came from La Cañada and met Nancy Goodlad because I joined the Seroptimus Club. Now, I don't know how many of you are familiar with the Seroptimus Club, but it was the club that women could join when we were not allowed to join the Kiwanis and the Rotary back in the 1920s. And so I have always found that people who are in service clubs in general have a very strong strike that is very similar to all of them. We care, and we care deeply about the community. We put ourselves on the line, and we serve, and we believe in serving others. And so I would very much like to honor this Rotary Club, because you have done things that are wonderful, not just this particular group, but all of the Rotary clubs, because without those service clubs, I think this country would be a lesser place. I am a retired professor from the Marshall School of Business at USC. I taught management communication there, and a 35-year business consultant. I ran around the country working with corporations and teaching managers management communication. My PhD was in culture and communication from New York University, and what I would do with my clients is work with the corporate culture side. So no matter what the company did, I was concerned with how people treated each other, how the management would work, how leadership would work, and the work that I did was absolutely fascinating and kept me busy for quite a long time. My husband and I moved to California with our 2 children, the boy and my girl, and our dog, back in the day when Carl Sagan was doing the Cosmos series. I don't know how many of you remember the scientists who talked about billions and billions of stars out in the universe. Well, that was the Carl that we moved from New York to join. We'd worked with him in New York. And during that next 10 years was probably the most exciting historic period I will ever have the great honor to be a part of. My husband joined the Jet Propulsion Laboratory and became the Deputy Flight Engineering Office Manager for Voyager 2 and for Galileo spacecraft. And during that next period of years, we encountered Mars. and Neptune and Jupiter and Saturn. And I was working with Carl as the Vice President of Marketing for the Cosmos store. So my job was to work with Carl as we were building materials to teach people about what was happening in the universe. Carl believed that if people don't understand science, they cannot be the educated public that is required for us to have the democracy that we need to have. Times are changing much too quickly for us to not understand the science and technology impacting us. After a while, though, my husband started to show signs of being ill, and it turned out that he had contracted bone marrow cancer. And during the next 5 years, we fought that bone marrow cancer until he succumbed to it. Well, it was interesting because when we had a loss of that giant magnitude, my daughter, my son, watching their father literally disintegrate, then that impacted the work I was doing, and I became something of a noted national figure in the area of helping companies work with change. And so I would go into a company like the Kodak Corporation, who is resisting change. We're not going to do digital photography. And I have a room filled with business people here. In the end, it is change or what if you are in business?
Thank you, Dr. Savary.
Or perish. And so the reality then becomes, how do you stop that from happening?
That's time, Dr. Savary. Thank you.
We still have 20 seconds.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you raised the one. I'm sorry. Go ahead. I apologize.
Okay.
I saw him raise.
Sorry.
Well, at 12 seconds. You still have 30 seconds.
30 seconds. Okay. So when I was asked to run for this position, I said, I'm not a politician. I don't know anything, never intended to be in politics. But the more I looked at Congress, the more I saw an organization in the same kind of trauma as every company that I was working with, refusing to change and stopping progress and in the process of disintegration. And that was why I took the decision to run for this office, to make that stop.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Savary. And I apologize. I saw him lift the page up, and I thought that meant time was out.
Not a problem.
Congressman Rohrabacher, 5 minutes.
I agree with Sue that we are grateful, both of us, for this opportunity that the Rotary Club has given us to talk directly to a significant number of voters. I left the Reagan White House 28 years ago after serving for 7 years as a special assistant to President Reagan and a senior speechwriter to the president. And I now, after 28 years, I look back, I am currently a senior member of the Science Committee and a senior member of the Foreign Affairs Committee, chairman of the Subcommittee on Foreign Affairs that oversees our relations with Europe, Russia, and Central Asia. So I thought that I'd mention a few of the things that I've accomplished over the years and what I expect to accomplish in the years ahead. First of all, I would say my number one accomplishment is I didn't join them. The people who want to, for whatever good reason or bad reason, personal profit or benevolence towards everyone, that would tax and would spend America into an economic downturn that there's no coming out of. They're willing to tax and spend away your freedom and tax away and spend away the possibility of prosperity for the American people. I have stood against this group, both right, by the way, conservative right-wingers want to spend money on certain things too that have no place in the federal government, and the liberal left does. I have been rewarded only by the recognition that I've received, and it's available to any of you afterwards, is a list of the tax organizations, National Taxpayers Association, and the groups that are against government waste, and those people who really scrutinize every one of our votes and what we do in Washington. I've won an outstanding awards from each one of these economic-oriented and from senior citizens economic-oriented groups as well. I have as well received many awards from people in the science and space area, because I have been a leading champion of protecting American inventors against major corporations who were trying to destroy the patent system so they can steal their creations. So anyway, I have, number one, I haven't joined the group that's going to, rape the little guys in this country. And I'm proud of that because so many of our guys get over there and forget the little folks, the regular folks that make this country great. Well, what have some of the accomplishments I have done? I think the thing I'm the most proud of, and Sue was mentioning her husband and the aerospace industry, I'm the father of the Commercial Space Act of 2004. For those of you who don't know what that is, that basically laid the legal foundation. Everybody said it doesn't have one chance of passing because it was such a dramatic change in the direction of our space policy. And it was to bring in private sector investment and let the private sector do those things that the private sector can do, let them invest billions of their own dollars rather than leave this all up to government employees. It passed, there wouldn't be a SpaceX or Blue Horizon or these companies like that without it. I'm very proud of that. I'm proud of the fact that I helped keep the C-17 line going here. I'm just sad that we are now in a very awkward situation where we might be cut off from overseas because we let that lapse in order to produce some other things. But I think Sue and I may agree on some of the actual things that our government is doing in the form of the military decisions they're making that are not beneficial. I can't read that. What was that?
1 minute.
That's 1 minute.
1 minute. Okay, so I got to hurry up. Anyway, I've also been very much, as you know, very active on the issue of illegal immigration, and I have been a major voice of trying to keep civility in the argument, but still watching out for ordinary American people, rather than trying to give amnesty to illegals, 11 million people, 20 million people who would come in here and really have a horrible impact on the standard of living of our own people, as well as the money that we spend for health and education, benefits that should go to our veterans, to the people who are American citizens instead of illegals. Now, let me just say what I am planning to do. I've got a list of things here, I'm sorry, but I just say that I am right now in the middle of several major issues that I can't read that either. Is that done?
0, yeah.
Okay, let me just say, later on I'll give you a list of the 5 or 6 things that I am now championing in Congress that are dramatic and have received a lot of good attention.
Thank you.
I'm glad to show you all about it. Thank you for letting me.
Thank you. Our first question will be from Jeff Snow from the Huntington Beach Rotary Club. Jeff, do you want to come up to this podium? And before we start, I want to thank Brent Ogden for being our timekeeper. And so when he does raise the pink card that says 1 minute, that means you have 1 minute left. Then he'll put it down. When he puts it back up again, that means your time's out. Finish that sentence. Okay? Thanks so much. Jeff, take it away.
Good evening. I'm Jeff Snow, board member with the Rotary Club of Huntington Beach in District 5320, Surf City's oldest and most prestigious service club. Thank you, Congressman Rohrabacher, and thank you, Dr. Savary, for your participation tonight and for connecting with our service community of Rotarians. And a big thanks to the Newport Beach Sunrise Rotary Club for hosting this event and the Newport Dunes for providing this beautiful venue. My question tonight relates to what you've both spoken about, science and space. What are your thoughts about the future of space travel and exploration, specifically with the entrance of privately funded companies like SpaceX?
Okay, Dr. Savary will go first, and you will both get 4 minutes. Yeah, you're first.
Am I next?
I think he's next.
No, you do less of your time.
Oh, okay. All right. And I do want us to thank Steve Bender. He has worked so hard to make this happen. Please, everybody, give him a round. This is not an easy thing to put together, and it really can get very complicated. I think I shared with you, somebody said in an interview about a week and a half ago, did you get involved with Carl Sagan because you loved astronomy? I said, I got involved with Carl Sagan because I loved an astronomer. And the astronomer that I loved was how I got deeper and deeper into the process. I was the vice president of marketing for Carl's company. We produced books and materials teaching people about science and how important it is for them to know and understand science. As a 40-year educator, nothing is more important to me than education. I believe it is the critical factor in a society, whether you want to cure crime, disease, upset, just about anything that you can think of, we can solve through education. And the fact that I had a part in that was wonderful. I do tell this story about being given the task to edit one of the books we were doing. It was called Visions of the Universe. And what Carl had done is he had made an agreement with Kazuaki Iwasaki, who was one of the top scientific artists in the world. And what Iwasaki was famous for was drawing what it would look like on Neptune or on a planet Pluto, where we'd never been. I guess I can't call that a planet anymore. But I was given the task of working with the author, working with him, and that author's name was Isaac Asimov. And it was Isaac Asimov's 232nd book. And Carl's wife, Annie, decided that we needed to deal with the commas in that book. And I got to call up Isaac Asimov and say, "Dear Isaac, I have been given the task of editing your book, and we have an issue with," and he said, "the commas, right, Sue?" I said, "Oh, thank you," because the last thing I wanted to be doing was to be telling him how to deal with his commas. So the simple reality is it was an extraordinary time, and what I was doing at that point was working with the people in our world who believe that you can, as they say, boldly go where no man has gone before, that we humans can put our intelligence and our wisdom together and solve problems that we think are unsolvable, and we can do that with the wise use of resources to do that. Now, the Jet Propulsion Laboratory where my husband worked is a lab of the Caltech. Caltech is funded by the government because it is the challenge of pure science. What we have done is we've moved the work into SpaceX, we've moved into the entrepreneurial environment, and a lot of people have concerns that we've done that a little too quickly and a little too early to be able to do the kind of thing that we need to do long term. I taught the entrepreneurs at USC. I am a fundamental believer that entrepreneurship is what is the economic engine of America. In the end, though, we really need to sit down and work with everyone, and I do understand that the congressman has very strong views about things, but there are concerns among people I have met up and down the 48th district that we have moved a little too quickly in moving some of those things into the commercial arena without taking real interest in the aerospace technologies, the companies that are in Orange County, that make a good job in Orange County, have for a long time, and that we've lost by the thousands. So my concern is we need to do both, but we also need to do it with great wisdom about not losing what we have.
Thank you, Sue. Dana?
Well, I'm very pleased that Sue knows a lot about space, and it's been part of her life. It's part of all of our lives. And we have to recognize that space now plays a major part in ensuring that we will have a quality of life on this planet. It is not just aerospace jobs in Southern California. And I have tried to focus America's space effort in these last few years. I've been in Congress and been a member of the Science Committee and been an active member on the Space Subcommittee. I was the chairman of that subcommittee when I wrote the Commercial Space Act of 2004. But we need a space concept that is aimed at making sure that space can help human beings on Earth. There's a lot of people who really want to spend not tens, hundreds of billions of dollars in the end is what it will be to send a man to Mars now. And I've been an opponent of that. Instead, we should make sure that we are spending money to develop the technologies that can, for example, clear space debris so that we can have satellites that serve us here on Earth. I've been a very champion of making sure that our Earth has at least something in place, and NASA would be the vehicle, so that if you see an asteroid or a meteorite that's heading to the Earth 5 years out, that we'll have some way to nudge it off its path. We have nothing like that now. In fact, I'm the one who saved the Arecibo telescope, which is the only way we can chart these asteroids far enough out to be able to put one off of its track before it hit the Earth. We need to be doing practical things, and in the long run, we will go to Mars, and we will have these grandiose moments where we're putting a flag in the ground. But we need to make sure we take care of the business that we can of something that will actually have major impact on us on Earth. I, for example, have been promoting and they have a major program of research called Space Solar Power, which we can then collect with solar collectors and beam energy to different parts of the Earth, Africa and other places, where they don't have an energy resource, where you could have electricity. Those are the type of things that I think we should invest in, and we can do so as partners with the private sector. And I'm very proud that I've saved the taxpayers billions of dollars, but I've also increased the amount of investment in the private sector and to accomplish these very goals. So, and again, one of the other things I am doing that will help us accomplish these things is to make sure the little guy is protected when he develops something and he has a patent. And I will tell you, some of the big corporations have been trying to destroy the patent system in America. And I'm proud that all the inventors know this, that I have actually beaten back some of these very powerful entities. I didn't know what that sign said. The light isn't hitting your sign right.
You still have a minute, about 45 seconds.
Oh, all right. Well, let me just say also, one of the things, I'll just list some of my accomplishments for you. I, for example, I don't know if you know what the X-37 is. The X-37, I had a group of intelligence officers come to my office. The X-37 used to be the space maneuverable. It was a vehicle, and I was the one who, at a time when we had earmarked that project. It sounded right for us to be able to get up into space and maneuver around, rather than have to rely just on changing orbit, which takes a long time. Well, that project was made here at Boyne. They made it. I was there when it came out. It disappeared, and these people came from the intelligence community to tell me for the last 5 years that has been America's #1 intelligence asset in space, and I'm very proud of that accomplishment.
Thank you, Dana. The next question will be by Craig Kennedy. And while Craig's going up, if you guys can't see the timekeeper, would you like him to move a little closer to the light? Would that help?
Yeah,
and one other...
Yeah, the shadow is sort of...
And one other thing, I want to apologize. I've been calling you Sue and Dana because that's what's in my notes. Is that okay?
Absolutely fine.
Okay. We're all friends here.
Is that a little easier?
1 minute.
So the first one is 1 minute, and the second one is just 0, means your time's out. And to finish your sentence, and if you start another sentence, I'll politely say, thank you.
All right.
Okay? The next question is from Craig Kennedy. Go ahead, Craig.
I'm Craig Kennedy from the Newport Beach Sunrise Rotary Club. Pleased to be here with you. Thank you for coming. This is a question about nuclear waste. We've shut down Yucca Mountain. We really have no plan, even though the federal laws prescribe that we should have a plan for nuclear waste, or there is no plan. As you know, we have a shut down nuclear facility within our area, which is the San Onofre facility. And this can present a clear and present danger to 8.2 million residents within a 50-mile radius. And there's no plan to take that waste away. We're planning to put it in situ and leave it there. What is your plan for making the residents of our area safe from the nuclear waste at San Onofre?
Dana, this question will go to you first, or Sue second? We'll switch off on this. So Dana, this is your question.
All right. Well, I think this is a very significant issue, and I have spent a considerable amount of time in the Science Committee. I am the champion of basically for us to be investing our money, again, limited money, into the next generation of nuclear power. The light water reactors, like the one at San Onofre, are inherently dangerous. And we should not build any more of them, and we should do our best to make sure that we move them out of our dependency cycle. And I have been very involved with the next cycle of nuclear power plants can and should eat the waste that has been left over from the old power plants. And that is not just a dream. There are a number of major engineering companies who will tell you that is absolutely possible, but we have not dedicated the money, and every year I'm arguing for that case. So in the long term, that's the answer. In the short term, I have already, and I know somebody came in to discuss with me and claimed that I was opposed to trying to do something about San Onofre, and then she went on the radio and lied that there was one piece of legislation that could do it, and Dana Rohrabacher was the only one who didn't sign it. I had already endorsed that and became a co-sponsor months before that whole incident. Yeah, this is we should be very concerned about it, and we need to make sure we come up with long-term solutions as well as protecting a short-term. So, and I think that this legislation, as I say, which I'm a co-sponsor of, is taking the right steps. It's not an emergency yet, but you know what's going to happen if there's an accident and some people are radiated. All of a sudden, Congress will act. Well, I've been pushing on this all this time, so that's that.
Okay, Sue?
Just before we get completely off the topic, I do want to tell you that in what I've done for the past year is to go up and down this coast, meeting with people, trying to learn. I'm a PhD, that's what PhDs do, but I tried to learn from as many people as I can. And when I met with Boeing engineers, one of them thrust into my hands an article written by the current NASA administrator asking why the Congress was not allowing our NASA to send those shots into space where we're putting instruments up into space for $80 million apiece. We are paying Russia to do that. And so there's real discomfort out there as to why we're not growing our own and reinforcing and paying for our own intelligence here to do that work. Now to San Onofre. I was introduced to San Onofre possibly by some of those same people that you were talking about, because there is in San Onofre enough fuel, more fuel than there was in Chernobyl, in spent fuel rods that are covered with water currently, but may or may not continue to be. These fuel rods, if an accident occurs, will impact 8.2 million people, and in a radius of 35 to 50 miles, according to our government's advice to Fukushima. The plan right now is to put them in caskets. The caskets are this thick. In Germany, the casket walls are this thick. Then they're going to put them into containment, cement containment, which, by the way, radioactive waste has a heat component. The cement containment would be closed with no way to tell what's going on in there. Someone suggested we put drones in there so that they could keep an eye as to when it cracked. No such drones are currently built. Therefore, we are literally containing waste that is throwing off heat that will crack those fuel rods. Now, I understand that Yucca Mountain is closed, but the simple reality is people in New Mexico and in Texas have offered to work with the government to create sites that would be interim storage centers and that would get this out of an area with 8.2 million people. It is not a tolerable decision. We cannot be making decisions like this, put you and I online. You want to get worse? We put the emergency room doctors to a call on this. Not one, used to be Edison had their own security people, not one emergency room in Orange County is prepared to handle an event That means if ambulances come up with radiated people in the radiated ambulance, there's not a person in Orange County prepared to handle that. Hazmat suits don't work. This is a complete and total disaster. People have begged the congressman to activate his ability and do what needs to be taken, that needs to be done. He signed on at the very bottom of the Interim Storage Containment Act. We need him to take this so seriously because every person in this room and our children and grandchildren could be dead because of this. My husband died because he had bone marrow cancer. UCLA doctors ascribed to the benzene plume in the ground underneath his workplace at JPL. Real people. Look at my face. That's the face of a human being who loved someone who was killed because we spoiled the property we live on. We cannot allow songs to be there. Everything our congresspeople need to be doing needs to be done to get it out of there. Yes, every one of us could be the people affected by a Fukushima type of event.
Okay, thank you. The next question will be Jackie Birdsong. And Sue, you will take this one first.
Birdsong from the Newport Beach Sunrise Rotary. This question is about Balboa Island and Newport Harbor seawalls. According to the city of Newport Beach, the seawalls around Balboa Island were built 85 years ago with a 100-year life expectancy. No federal funds have been appropriated for this infrastructure project as of today. What would you do or have you done regarding this issue?
Well, I'm not in Congress yet, so I haven't done anything for the seawalls except to try to make people aware of how dangerous this is. We know there's 15 years left, and the city of Newport Beach Engineering came and gave a presentation to the people of Balboa Island, and they said no money has been appropriated. They have found some money to do the bridge on Balboa Island, which apparently is going to continue for the rest of our lives, but the seawalls have not been addressed with that money. So the city doesn't have it, the state doesn't have it. It has to be something like a federal appropriation. And that's not just Balboa Island, but let me just tell you, they told us that the rebar inside the walls is what disintegrates. When you're at the end of your engineering life, you are seeing rebar disintegrating. That means all around the island, not just the Grand Canal. Grand Canal is a very specific, very unique area. All around the island, we are seeing cracks in the cement. And this is true, by the way, at all the different seawalls around the harbor, on the peninsula, just all over Bayside Drive. The actual walls are disintegrating. So the city of Newport Beach, without the resources, said, what we have to do is we have to repair it as it cracks. Now, most engineers will tell you that's a joke. You can't do that because the rebar inside the wall is what is cracking. This is symptomatic of a lack of planning. You don't say 15 years out, oh, by the way, we should now figure out what to do with walls. They're absolutely disintegrating. This needs to be something that is thought out in advance. My friend Loretta Sanchez says to me 20 years ago when she got to Congress, it took a period of 7 years out. If you wanted to appropriate funding for roads, schools, bridges, just look at Anaheim to see the work of Congresswoman Sanchez, including the Back Bay, by the way, when they could not get help from our own congressman, she was the one who appropriated the funding for the dredging of this Back Bay right behind you. The simple reality is that it took 7 years for funds for infrastructure when she got there, then it was 5, then it was 3, and now it is less than 2. Any engineers in this room know you cannot do major infrastructure with a 2-year planning period. And so what is taking place with the seawalls is endemic of not having a large overview. I'm a businesswoman. The simple way you have to function in a changing environment is you have to look at what's happening long-term as well as short-term, or you simply get sideswiped by what's going on in your world. So the reality is we are in danger. Now, the fact that I live on Balboa Island isn't the only reason I care about this, simply because the problems occurring throughout the harbor, it's occurring up and down the coast, but I'm waiting to wake up with wet feet. And have you seen these maps? Anyone on the island, if you see the maps where they're projecting out when the seawalls are going to start, not just failing, but the rising tides are getting there because of the rising walls, Balboa Island goes under pretty darn fast. So we need to be making decisions about what we're doing with our homes before we wake up with those wet feet. But this is an absolute decision on the part of the congressman to ignore the rising tides of climate change. And we cannot afford to have that kind of thought process taking place when our lives are at stake. I honor somebody being profoundly invested in their views, but you cannot put the rest of us in danger.
Thank you. Dana?
Well, let me just note again that I was deeply involved in this nuclear issue that we discussed a moment ago, and long-term solutions is what I have focused on. Short-term dangers of just trying to say we're going to transport nuclear waste that is very, very dangerous, even when it sits there, and for us to think that we're going to transport it and do so safely without endangering even more millions of people is not a rational way to look at this. We have got to make sure that we do the long-term and the short-term studies and engineering and understanding of what we're doing here, not just, oh, we're afraid of nuclear waste here. Well, if we have to transport it, and that's why I signed on to this legislation, which is studying the means of transporting this nuclear waste to a safe haven and how to do it safely. That's what that legislation is all about. And as I say, I signed on long before somebody came to me to talk to me about it, and then that person, I forget who it was claiming that I did not sign on the bill. By the way, is HR 3646. About the seawalls, I'm not going to sound heartless here, but I don't, I do, and I'm a proud citizen of East Side, Costa Mesa, so I'm not really a resident of Newport Beach, but I'm right there. And I do appreciate and enjoy the bay, and my kids sail around the bay, and I was a surfer at the Wedge from the time I was in high school, so I appreciate this. But look, Newport Beach has made some horrible mistakes lately. I mean, I'm sorry, maybe it's just my point of view, but for you to say that the federal government has to handle this project when Newport Beach spends, I don't know exactly how much they spend, but millions and tens of millions of dollars on some behemoth city hall. I mean, I'm sorry, the federal government isn't the only way that you solve problems. And when you say we're going to focus on the federal government to solve this problem, well, I think that those of us who live in this area should work together, and instead of wasting money like I just said on this, I can't believe it. We had a nice little city hall, and I've been there many years, but and going by, I like Newport, I love Newport, and by the way, I did always sign on to the dredging of Back Bay. This idea that I didn't do that is absolutely fallacious. I don't believe Chris Cox did, but I don't know. But the fact is, I've always been willing to do that because people in Newport Harbor pay taxes and they deserve some of it back. But we shouldn't look every time there's a problem like the seawalls, oh, we got to just go to the federal government because that's the solution. Well, believe me, that's the reason why the federal government could well go economically down in the next few years. We're already spending, by the way, what was it this year? It was $40 billion more than we took in. Okay, that's $40 billion. We're going to be like Greece unless we change our ways. When you get a local problem, let's try to solve it locally before we go to the federal government. I think that's what makes sense.
Thank you. Number 4.
Hi there, I'm Shaylin from the Newport Beach Rotary Club, Sunrise Rotary Club. And my question is about climate change. So the first part's a little wordy, bear with me. Multiple studies published in peer-reviewed scientific journals show that 97% or more of actively publishing climate scientists agree. Climate and global warming trends over the past century are extremely likely due to human activity. In addition, most of the leading scientific organizations worldwide have issued public statements endorsing this position. Do you feel that climate change could be man-made? And if so, what would you do to address the situation?
Dana, this is you go first.
Climate change has been happening since the time the Earth was formed. There has been climate cycles. A colleague of mine was at a hearing just recently and read a newspaper article from November 20th to the administration's top advocate of global warming. And the article from November 20th in the Washington Post said, the ice is totally melting away in the north. The water's warming. Animals are not used to it, are dying off. That's changing the configuration of the Arctic area forever. And my colleague asked this scientist, actually it's an administration scientist who was pushing the scientist, is this the challenge that you're talking about? He says, that's what we're trying to cope with. And he says, well, you know, this is from November 20th, but it's from 1922. Now, I would just have to tell you, this idea that the 97% of scientists, now you said it in exactly the way that it might be accurate, but it comes across like 97% of scientists believe that global warming is being caused by basically the internal combustion engine, basically is what they're saying. That is, first of all, 97% of the scientists don't say that. The president's top advisor was at a hearing that I was at, and I asked him, do you believe that 97% of the scientists believe that global warming, we're in global warming that's caused by CO2 produced by mankind? He did not back that at all. He had his chance, and he refused to acknowledge, because it's not true. There are many, many significant scientists, people who are the head of geological and astronomical associations throughout the world, in Great Britain and here, who have said this is not true. This, basically what we've got is changes that have happened in the Earth's atmosphere. We had 10 times or more the CO2 in our atmosphere back when there were plants all over the world and dinosaurs reigned. So that was not a major problem for them. And the climate change that we do see, and we do see this, is caused by changes in the sun. That's where it comes from. And a large number of very prominent scientists agree with that. If we talk about global warming being caused by what we do, by the way, there's only 1/10, there it is, 1/10 of 1%. Now, it's 1/2 of 1/10 of 1% of the atmosphere is CO2. 1/2 of 1/10 of 1%. And of that CO2, at least 80% of it is naturally caused, not caused by human beings. Now, this is a natural thing. Cycles in the weather are natural things. We have had huge hot spells in the past. And they say, it's the hottest ever recorded, but they don't tell you, they really didn't start recording it until about the 1880s or 90s. So it's, anyway, to make it short, I'm not giving up our freedom and letting you be taxed into oblivion, taking money away from real research projects that can help people's lives in order to destroy the oil industry and in order to destroy the people who believe in the internal and have the internal combustion engine that is making our lives better. I will note, let me however note, I am a champion of solar energy. I am a champion of technologies that will improve things. I just don't believe that we need to basically mandate this, because the market will take care of it, because solar energy, with some new works that I've been working on personally on batteries,
Thank you.
will make solar energy very profitable.
Thank you. Sue?
Okay. I'd like to just go back for 1 minute because there's always the issue brought up that we cannot afford to do things like the nuclear waste and like the walls. And we looked into this recently. As a matter of fact, my friend Larry here looked into it just this evening. We in California only get 78 cents on a dollar that we send to Washington, D.C. Some states, like Mississippi, get $2 plus. New Mexico, which gets the most, gets even more than that. Every problem we have in California can be solved if we just got back $1 for $1. I'm not assuming we could do that. Certainly we couldn't have that happen. But the reality is that the 78 cents certainly could be much improved if our congressional and Senate group stood together and didn't allow California to hand off that kind of money. By the way, only 1.2% of that money is spent on science. Science, which is one of the greatest generators of our economic engine that we could possibly have. And education, same kind of thing. We're spending minuscule amounts of money on the very things that can make our economy not have to cut like we cut. So climate change. Multiple studies by scientists who work in the area of climate research. That's where the 97% come from. You can't just ask any science, the scientist who studies teeth, if they care about climate change. These are the people who actually study climate change, and 97% of them do indeed agree. They agree that we are in an absolutely unique cycle. The cycle is getting worse, and it's been getting worse every year for the last 30, 40, 50 years. And so we are in a massive problem. Now, what's even more important to note is that the gentleman that most people who are climate change deniers go to for their research on the climate is a man named Fred Singer. He is all over the congressman's site, his website, as a supporter of his theories of climate change. Fred Singer was one of the most egregious of the scientists that the tobacco industry hired. And this is in a book called Merchants of Death. And in that book, it told you how the tobacco industry played all of us on the theory that tobacco and cigarettes didn't kill people. Well, they did, and we know they did. Here we have Fred Singer and his buddies again out there pretending to be serious authority for something they know darn well is not the case. By the way, what is even worse is Exxon, Chevron, Shell, and BP have all signed on to the fact that climate change, in fact, is real and is man-made. Who hasn't? Oh, the dear Koch brothers. We used to have a term in business called the buggy whip manufacturers, and when that automobile came along and replaced the horse, they actually used to shoot out the tires of cars because their buggy whip business was going to go out of business. They had such short-sightedness, and this is a classic business case study called marketing myopia. See the future, see it for what it is, and become it. That the reality is that the trains and the transportation, if they'd seen that they were in the transportation business, they would have become the airlines and the automotive companies. This is just an error made by poor-sighted business people. Climate change is real, and by 2030, if we haven't taken steps, we literally can't make the changes we need to make in order to survive it.
Thank you, Sue. We're halfway through. Phil Reynolds, our joke master, but he's not going to tell a joke, he's going to tell a question.
Please tell a joke.
Question 5, Sue will start this.
Okay, I'm not supposed to tell a joke, but I am confused. You know, you're talking about space travel to Mars, and Sunday we put a man on Mars and everything, but I thought a man already had landed on Mars. I saw the movie. He was there and he came back. And, so, anyway, I was a little confused about that. This question, my name is Phil Reynolds. I'm a member of the Newport Beach Sunrise Rotary Club. As Steve Bender likes to say, the best Rotary Club in the universe or wherever. but I don't want to say that because we have a lot of good friends here from other. Thank you, all you other Rotary members that came tonight to support us. I appreciate that. Yeah, it's a great organization. Okay. Question is, Orange County was long known as a center for aerospace, yet thousands of well-paying jobs have been lost. What have you done or will you do to bring back lost aerospace jobs and attract new clean energy jobs?
This goes to you, Sid.
Okay. When, or during my career as a consultant and a professor at USC, I spent a great many years working with entrepreneurs. And entrepreneurs, as I said before, are the economic engine of America. What we know, by the way, is that 17 out of 18 new jobs created in America are created not by the large multinationals, but by small and mid-sized businesses. And to the extent that we are literally, publicly threatening those businesses, we are threatening the future of our country. So, again, I went all over this district trying to find out what was going on and what I should know. Of course, I went to UCI, and UCI is a brilliant resource in the 48th district and parts of the 48th district. Mostly it's in Irvine, but I met a gentleman there, a man named Scott Samuelson. I don't know if that name rings any bells to you, but you have all been impacted by Scott's work. Scott has many patents, but one, if you remember when we were kids and you would put gas in your car engine and there was the smell of gasoline. Well, today you don't have that. I kind of liked it actually, as I remember, but we don't have that smell anymore because the collar that Scott created was put on the handle where you put it into your car. He said to me, Sue, we are sitting on an explosion of knowledge here at UCI. This explosion of knowledge should be the equivalent of, excuse me, should be the equivalent of what Stanford did to Silicon Valley. Silicon Valley became Silicon Valley because the work that was done out of Stanford, and easily Orange County, particularly this direct area, could be that. Instead, what I see are companies coming in from Connecticut and from all over the country where they are having major zones filled with energy producers, and they're walking away with our technology. It should be that every high school in Orange County is teaching kids what they need to know in order to feed into those companies. We need the incubators, we need the accelerators, we need to create an industrial zone similar to what Jennifer Granholm did in Michigan to take that state from being the Rust Belt and turn it around. You know, in Kodak, people in the boardroom never saw the failure coming, and it came so fast, you can't even believe it. And it does when companies resist change so badly, don't even look at what's really happening. In Orange County, a great job 27 years ago used to be that top-notch aerospace job where somebody could bring up their kids and send them to school and have a nice life. Today, the holder of a good job in Orange County is a service industry, and that person can barely afford to rent the home that they could have in order to bring the family into this world. So the reality is we are like a three-legged stool, and the stool away from the coast is the part of the stool that's crumbling, and in the coast we tend to look and say, oh, isn't it all wonderful? And it is. It's fabulous. It's why we live here. But we need to be doing the work we need to do in order to create the clean energy jobs, and it is also the job of the representative in Congress to fight like crazy for every one of those good aerospace jobs. And I was just up at Boeing earlier this week, and they don't feel that anybody's fighting like crazy for the aerospace jobs. They have seen those jobs go away, they have seen all of their peers sent somewhere else, and they don't understand why we're not fighting for them. So that is what I would argue about the clean energy economy is the way to the future. We can do it. We have every resource to be able to do it, and it has to be done by somebody who will fight for you.
Thank you, Sue. Dana?
To go directly to the question, let me note that we don't have to just make sure that there are clean energy jobs that come from the aerospace people. although I think that's a very good alternative. This idea that that's the uplift everybody. Let me note, I've already been on top of that. As I say, I've spent so much time and effort and working with the nuclear energy industry to make sure that we get going on the next generation of nuclear energy, which will not be as dangerous as the current light water reactors are. We have gas-cooled, high-temperature gas-cooled reactors. We've got thorium reactors. There's 3 or 4 ways to go at that, and I've been pushing that for a long time, and I'm making some headway, and we'll see when we have a new president, well, whoever that is, man or woman. I've been working on space solar power as an alternative. That too would mean a lot of high-paying jobs if we develop a system that can gather solar energy in space and beam it to those areas of the world that don't have electric energy systems. Also, I was instrumental in making sure that the solar energy industry could use the desert. And we have lots of people who talk about jobs, and we're associated with the same radical environmentalists who want to tell us global warming is justification for all kinds of international controls over our economy, but they also want to have all sorts of controls over us. And then we're going to let these solar energy people develop their potential in the desert. Where are they going to put out solar collectors? So I was very active in that, and have been very active on that type of energy issue. But it doesn't just derive from the loss of jobs in the aerospace industry. Let me know again, we have people who have tried in these large companies to destroy the patent system. Sue and I agree on the importance of patents, and I will have to brag here, but I stopped it personally. Your congressman stopped the greatest theft that would have undermined all of the progress we're talking about. And I'm proud of that, and I took on all these companies. That's why I don't get a lot of contributions from these major corporations. Let me note that we also, when we're talking about entrepreneurship, I am the author of legislation that now is being seriously considered as part of a major tax package that would say, that says, if you give your employees a stock option, or not stock option, you give them stock, they don't have to pay income tax on that stock. And if they keep the stock for 10 years, they don't have to pay capital gains tax on it. So that reform alone would be such an incredible incentive for these same companies you're talking about. But what do they get? They haven't been getting that. What they've been getting from this administration and the Democratic Party is taxes and regulations and controls that would destroy anybody's enterprise. The fact is that the smaller they are, the more records they have to keep. And trying to give stock, for example, to their employees is such a complicated process that I think that if we facilitate it, we're going to see a lot of companies start and a lot of new jobs being created. And again, your congressman is in the forefront of this, and I'm proud of it. And if we do come up in the next tax package with that really incredible incentive for small companies to bring in new employees and start high-quality people, you'll know that your congressman is at work.
Thank you. Brian Green, next question. Dr. Brian Green, I think he's the dentist of a lot of the returns in the room.
Hi, I'm also a Rotary Club member, and I'm also the proud father of 2 little girls, and I also happen to be a millennial, so that kind of goes into my question. Will you support the following, and if not, why? Reducing interest rates on student loans, and also the second part of this question is equal pay for equal work for women.
Dana, your turn's first.
Oh, well, I think Sue's going to be able to have a rebuttal time for this. No, I'm not for focusing on the students' loans and trying to give them a special benefit. I'm trying to bring down the cost of education for those students. We should not be But basically, if we are subsidizing those student loans by mandating certain interest rates, what we're subsidizing is a higher education system that is so, how do you say, they are not cost effective in what they're doing. They are profligate in their spending. They are not getting the job done in our higher education. The professors who are teaching 1 or 2 classes a week and make large sums of money get to keep the money from what the books they write. No, we need to bring the cost down of higher education, and we need to, so I would not be in favor of something like that, what you're talking about, which would take away from our ability to get people involved in a real reform of our higher education system. Number 2, and the other one was equal pay for equal work. I think anybody who is discriminated against because they're a woman and can show that they are not, that they are being discriminated against and that they are not receiving what someone else receives for doing the same job, they should be able to take that person to court and sue them and win. And yes, that should definitely be something that women are able to do and able to fight that fight and win, because yes, discrimination on wages against women is not acceptable. So with that said, I guess let me go back. I've got a couple of seconds. Let me go back to this fighting for aerospace jobs here. Let me just note, you asked Boeing who helped keep the line, the C-17 line, going as long as it did. You will find that I was out fighting for the C-17, kept it. I actually went overseas and made sales for them. Actually got foreign countries to agree to purchase a number of them just to keep the line going. It's the most short-sighted, this is the most short-sighted decision I've ever seen in terms of now we're wearing out all of the C-17s with our overseas fighting that's been going on for 15 years. And now we've shut down the line. If we're in a dangerous situation in the future, that C-17 isn't going to be there because we've worn all the ones that we have already working, we've worn them out. We've taken away half their service life. And also I was, of course, as I mentioned, I was the guy who actually made sure we had, and I can't go into the exact details for you, but had the X-37, which was the space maneuvering vehicle, that we have had in space now as a major intelligence asset for the last 10 years. And I was deeply personally involved. In fact, I'm the one who earmarked that project. Unfortunately, they've taken earmarks away from congressmen now. We have to just give money to an agency, let them decide. But on those type of projects, as you can see, I have been not only servicing our constituents, I've been servicing our country and making sure that we have the high technology and have put to use this incredible asset of the aerospace industry in Southern California. The aerospace industry that gave my father a job when he got out of the service. The aerospace industry that has provided the energy and the engineering and the creativity that now that when the Cold War ended, shifted in to these various other parts of our economy and prevented us from going into an economic tailspin. It was the aerospace industry that trained those people. And I'm proud of it. I'm proud of the job that I've done for them.
Thank you, Dana. Sue?
All right, we did go into an economic tailspin, and we went into it over and over again, and those people did lose those jobs, and those jobs did go overseas, and it takes a congressman to do things differently. When we went down to see the Department of Energy about these songs, San Onofre, we had one of the assistants to that department speaking to us, and we said to him, what can we do? How can we solve this thing that could bring death and destruction to every one of us? And he said, point blank, you can do nothing. And we said, that's not acceptable. He said, nothing other than lobby your congressperson, because it takes a congressperson to make this country move. And the congressperson who decides to make the country move makes the country move. Yes, that congressperson might have to work with other people, might have to put a coalition together, might have to problem solve, might have to meet with people in order to get the FAA to move, This is, by the way, what people are concerned about, what's going overhead here with the FAA. So the reality is, it takes a congressperson, and I'm sure that our congressperson has fought fights and fought them early in that 27 years. But I remember reading that when you ran initially 27 years ago, you ran on term limits, because term limits are something that occur when people finally run out of steam. So the reality is you ran on doing this congressperson's job for 2 term limits, and we need a fighter, we need somebody who will not say no, because as that person said, no one but a congressperson can stop what's going on in San Onofre. There is almost nothing I can think of worse than saying we're not going to take this burden of the debt off the shoulders of our students. 3 things happen in the research when you have students walking out of universities with massive debt. They don't do one thing. They don't buy a home until they're in their 30s because they can't afford to. 2, they don't become service people, nurses, teachers, firemen. None of those things can they afford to become. And number 3, and most important because we've been talking about it up here, they don't become entrepreneurs, the basic economic engine of this country. And sir, I hear you say women should be able to go to court against, I don't know who am I supposed to go to court against? Massive multinational firms with all the resources on earth? Equal pay for equal work is the right of every single woman in this country and this world. And when you voted against that, which you did and did repeatedly, you voted against every woman in this room who has worked her heart out at a job. We women have to work all the way until April 14th in order to get the same money that the man sitting next to us gets for doing that job. That's not acceptable, it's not fair. My granddaughter should never be in that position. And then when you voted not to reauthorize the Violence Against Women Act, we were flabbergasted. That is about protecting women and making sure that we are defended in this society. So I may sound like I'm intense about this. I am. I am for my daughter, I am for my granddaughter, and the daughters and granddaughters of every woman in this room. The simple reality is not paying us equally for equal work. We never once asked for more than that. The research is very clear, by the way, the Hillary Clinton research from Bosnia. When you take care of women, everybody gets better. And that research is unequivocal because we women can't help it. We take care of everybody.
Thank you, Sue. John Goodlad, you have the next question. And Dana, or no, excuse me, Sue, this is your question first.
Hey, John Goodlad from Newport Beach Sunrise Rotary. Dr. Savary, Congressman Gorbacher, thank you so much for joining us this evening. This question is regarding operations from John Wayne Airport, and noise complaints. I think I hear another one coming. What have you done, or what will you do to address this regular complaint from our local citizens? Thank you.
I can easily hear people thinking, well, I don't have flights over my house, so it doesn't really bother me. But I was brought into this issue when a number of people here in Dover Shores came to me and said, we did petitions for everyone who lives in our area, 2,028 petitions. And we brought them to the congressman's office, and we never heard a word. No matter what the issue is, even if you believe those people are dead wrong, 2,028 constituents have a right to get a response. The mayor of Newport Beach went to see you over the same issue, and you said, I'm not interested in talking about that. So we had an event, I think about, I don't know, 2 weeks ago, something like that. We had 80 or 90 people came in, and I was there to listen. And during the entire event, people told the story of owning their homes, living there for 25 years, not asking for anything other than the commitment that was made when they moved in. and they believe that there is a widening range of flight paths that are making almost ignored the agreement that the flights out of John Wayne should go over water or uninhabited land to the extent possible. So what they're asking is the least damage for the most people. Seems like a most reasonable thing to do. During that meeting, everyone had a say, and at the end of the meeting, I shared what I just shared with you by the Department of Energy, that unless your congressperson gets involved, by the way, not to run songs into the ground, but when the San Onofre issue came up, there was, when we started looking at the airport issue, a congressman down in San Diego, Scott Peters, got involved, and he said the FAA is planning new ways of going out to sea with GPS technology. And those ways of going out to sea kind of ignore some of the agreements that had been made for decades. Scott Peters told the FAA he wanted them to do some thinking about the Point Loma. And lo and behold, the FAA said, we can't do any thinking. Everything is just what it is. It's all math. Well, it wasn't all math, because they moved the flight path out of the way of Point Loma. So what we're asking is what can be done. And we think that citizens have a right to ask their federal representative to sit down and go back over an issue with the people who have been studying it, do it in a way that everybody feels heard and feels addressed, and do the least damage to the most people, or take the situation and try to find a way to make it work. Those little dots that everyone who lives in this area find on your car, on your boat, on your sidewalk, on wherever, your umbrella, those little tiny dots, we were told in La Cañada when I lived up there by the people who study the air that we breathe, no big thing. Until about 5 years ago, they decided, this is the Air Quality Management Control District, that my children who grew up with those little tiny dots in their lungs were the equivalent of having 2 packs of cigarettes smoked a day. So we don't know the answer for the little dots that are coming down here, but we sure need to address it, and that's what I will do representing all of you.
Thank you, Sue. Dana?
Well, let me just note the comments that she made about my involvement are just total baloney, and it just hurts your credibility on all the other arguments that you've made. My office has been deeply involved in this issue. I've had myself had 3 or 4 meetings with people. We have gone to the FAA making requests, a number of requests. In fact, the meeting that you described, the last meeting that you were described, my office called and said, can we send a representative there? A congressman will be in Washington, of course. Can we send a representative? And the answer was, no, we don't want you. I don't know what was handled at that meeting, but it doesn't sound like they were interested in having the Congress. My staff has been to, I think, 15 different meetings with FAA, with community meetings, and then several meetings with the FAA and community leaders. This 23,000, we never heard a word. You never, I received this information. I met with the people who were collecting these signatures, and we have been in communication with anybody who wants to discuss the issue in more, and we have been active in the issue. That's what you're saying is total baloney. Now, the FAA, by the way, does not determine how many flights are going over here. You know that. We keep hearing, wait, by the way, I didn't hear any solution there. All I heard is some beat up somebody irresponsibly, because I will tell you that this is not something that, I live here, so you may not live under the flight ban. I live right over that little ledge over there in East Side Costa Mesa, and I hear these planes all the time. So I know what the problem is. I do not want to close the airport. I have spent, but it's the FAA does not determine how many flights go in and out of that airport. It's determined by local officials. Have you talked to the mayor that said, I don't want to talk about it? which is baloney. What mayor was it? What was his name?
No, I will introduce you to
What's his name?
both parties that I
What's his name? What's the name of the mayor that said that I refused to talk to him about it?
Mayor Tony Eisman.
He said that I refused to talk about it. And I was right there, but I said, I'm not going to talk to you about it. Well, that is total baloney. Think about that. Think about it. I'm going to sit down and say to a mayor of my district, no, I'm not going to talk about a problem that you think you have. Well, maybe it was, he said that it's possible we were in the meeting of some other major issue, but I doubt that. I think this just like, okay, and let's get back to FAA, and I am worried about this. I know about pollution that comes from, by the way, also comes from diesel trucks, which we have to be worried about. But jet airplanes, we know, jet transportation. And by the way, the global warming elite doesn't tell everybody, but their main goal is to try to limit the number of people who are traveling by air, because when you talk about a footprint, that's the greatest carbon footprint that there is. And so they want to eliminate frequent flyer miles and any type of stimulus to get people to travel by air. They won't tell you that. But anyway, I did make several efforts to try in the past to alleviate this problem. I've seen it since I was a kid, and I was deeply involved with trying to get El Toro to be made into an alternative airport so that we could cut down the number of flights here and have a different part of the county being serviced by that airport. And I don't know how you felt about that, but I fought my hardest to get that done. So in all these issues we're talking about, I have fought hard. I haven't been successful in every one of them, but I've been successful in some of them.
Thank you.
But I've talked to everybody.
Thank you, Gary. Last question. And before we read the last question, I want to thank everybody for coming. We have something at the end. I did give you a little flyer on a lot of the projects that Newport Beach Sunrise Rotary does. Also a letter for me, and on the back it does say, just to clarify, as the moderator, I will remain neutral and not make any comments or be responsible for fact-checking. I would encourage all guests to take notes and research accordingly before the election. Okay, thank you. The final question will be by Caroline Leo.
Hi everybody, I am also a Rotarian at the Newport Beach Sunrise. Okay, I have a fun one to end the evening. Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump head into the presidential race, and this is with the worst favorable ratings of any presumed Democratic or Republican nominee in decades. I would like to ask each candidate who they will be voting for and to list 3 strengths of that candidate.
Dana, you're first.
Gee, is there any question about that? I mean, I found this to be a very interesting year, and like the Chinese say, that when you're talking about something that's interesting, you're talking about a crisis. You know? I will be voting for the Republican nominee, and I think no matter what problems he has, for example, and how he's made his money and such in the private sector, and he's built buildings and had can't speak for him, but I realize that there's a lot of questions about that. Hillary raised it in the last debate. I don't know why that Trump didn't raise the issue that he made all his money in the private sector where they're supposed to, and the Clintons have made millions of dollars while one of the members of the family are in public service, even to the point that her husband would travel with her and then make speeches for contributions to their their foundation.
The question
while
was
overseas.
The question was 3 strengths of the candidate. So I would like to ask each candidate 3 strengths of the candidate they're voting for. Nothing negative about the other person.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm voting for Donald Trump because he's the Republican nominee. Is that what you're talking about?
I believe we asked for 3 strengths of Donald Trump. 3 strengths of that candidate.
Oh, the strengths. Listen, his major strength is that he's not Hillary. He's not Hillary Clinton. His main strength is that his opponent is so bad, and she is, here she is talking about making sure that he gets his tax records out, and she is basically put the nix on public records that she won't let the public or anybody see. Strengths, not his strength. That's right. I'm working hard. His strength is that he's not Hillary, and his strength is that that he doesn't have a long situation where he has had to develop IOUs politically, and that means that these big guys, he hasn't had to raise money from big guys. One of my strengths has always been that the big guys never give me any money, and if you take a look at so I know that when it comes to Trump, the big guys haven't given him any money either. So I think that's probably one of his strengths, and he certainly, I think that's all I could say.
Okay, Sue, your turn. Who you'll be voting for? And name 3 strengths of that person.
I don't think there's probably any doubt in this room who I'm voting for, but you're making me not tell my joke, which is that Donald ended up being born on third base and thinks he hit a home run. The strengths. I believe that if Hillary, and I do not mean to play a woman card here, but let us also have 2 sides to that one. If Hillary were not a woman, she would unquestionably be the only candidate taken seriously in this race. She has experience par excellence. There has never been a candidate, and that, by the way, is according to Bill Clinton and Barack Obama, that neither of them were ever anywhere near as prepared for this job as she is. She is steady at an amazing level. I've had some hits in my life, some really, really hard hits. And she has taught me in a large way how you get over them, how you get past them, how you maintain your graciousness, keep your family together, which is what she chose to do. I will not judge her one way or the other. That choice that she made, I don't know what I would have done, but the reality is she made the choice and she did what she did, and she went on with her life, and not breaking down and cracking is an astonishing thing. And not suffering fools gladly, which unfortunately she has had to learn to do, whether it is the head of North Korea, the head of other cultures around the world. She never went into any of those countries and pulled back on her belief that every country on earth had to enhance the ability of women to participate in the society. Hillary Clinton doesn't want to run the world in spite of men. She wants to run the world with men. And I think, honestly, there is such a sexism involved in these judgments against her that is just horrifying for me and for my friends to look at this and not see it for what it is. Please take another look at what we're facing, because this other guy is a great carnival barker, but Hillary is so well prepared, and this world will be a better place. They did a great job in the 90s, and they're prepared to do a great job here. Are we going to have a wrap-up? We're still...
Well, you have a little more time on yours, and we're going to do a final statement.
This is our final?
No, there's got to be.
No.
Oh, okay.
You still have 3, you had to be able to say 3 things you liked about Hillary.
I did say that I thought that she has the experience, she is the steadiest person, and that I think in the end she will be the very best of our presidents probably in history. And I do believe in my heart that what we're looking at maybe finally is the opportunity for men and women to stop seeing each other through a gender filter and seeing each other for the skilled partner that we can be, and that's precisely what I think is going to happen here. I think we're going to be so proud of her that it's absolutely an exciting time. and the work that she does with families, with the middle class, with the young people, with preschool. Preschool, one of the most powerful tools we have in order to make a better society. I've never seen a candidate as prepared and as thoughtful as she is. So those are my maybe 10 reasons of what my friends and I say getting Hillary Clinton elected is the end goal of our lives. This is, for us, that important.
Okay, thank you. And I want to thank both candidates. This concludes the question part. I want to thank, there's 45 different clubs in District 5320. I want to thank all the clubs that have come, Rotary clubs that have submitted questions. I think they were fair, balanced, and I want to thank the candidates for answering them all very well. The last part of the segment will be closing statements. There'll be 5 minutes each. We flipped a coin. Dana, you will go first.
Well, thank you very much. And I again say that Donald Trump's major asset is that he is not Hillary. And I'm sorry that we have to ignore the horrendous things that this woman has done and then blame it on sexism for claiming that she has done evil things. Listen, the Clintons have enriched themselves in public service. We know that. It's right there. But we also know that there are women that have stepped forward, and I don't see anybody who claims they're concerned about women cannot understand that Hillary was an enabler to a serial rapist, her husband. And this is all of these women that have stepped forward, and for you to wait a minute, we're in the debate here. The bottom line is, hey, I get a closing statement.
We're going to keep it down and let Dana speak. You have a few more minutes.
When you get a closing statement, you can say what you want. And the bottom line is that anybody who could just brush off criticisms of this woman, claiming that this is out of sexism, at a time when it is very clear that you've got a number of women who have been raped by her husband who claim that Hillary personally tried to get them not to follow through on it. Okay, is that true? Okay, I hope that my colleague will suggest, or my opponent will suggest, that those are not true. All these women need to be discounted. The ones who claim that, and remember, Bill Clinton was disbarred from his ability to be a legal counsel because he was found guilty of lying about one of his exploits. Now, with that said, this issue, that's the issue. And,
let's keep it down. Let's finish the closing statement.
Maybe we can get another 10 minutes or 10 seconds because of this discourtesy by people who won't let someone, oh, you're for free speech, you're for women. No, only if people who disagree with you, then you can interrupt an event like this. You should be ashamed of yourselves for that. The bottom line is, this is what we have here in this race. We have two good candidates. I think Susan is a very good candidate. She represents what she believes. I represent what I believe. The bottom line is, however, the Democratic Party, which she is involved in and that she shares those beliefs, is the party that I believe has betrayed the American people over and over again, bringing in even now, well, I have a bill saying if we're going to bring people in from the Middle East, my goodness, let's make sure we bring in Christians who've been targeted for genocide. No. The Democratic Party says, oh, that's bigotry if you try to bring in Christians. And they bring in instead, thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of Muslims into our country, even realizing that the vetting process hasn't worked because we've had mass slayings of our own people by Muslims that have been coming here. That's what that party's all about. That party's about releasing the prisoners from Gitmo even though the prisoners they've already released have gone out and killed Americans. Now, this is a betrayal of our security. And let me note, Hillary could not get herself to admit that once our ambassador was assassinated by radical Islamic terrorists, she had to claim over and over again, no, this was done because there was a movie that enraged everybody. This administration, including Hillary, could not use the words radical Islamic terrorism. That's the greatest threat to your security right now. That's what we have to do. That's what this race is really about. We agree on a lot of science issues. But when it comes down to the security of our country, the Democratic Party is betraying the American people and making us less safe. And I'm very proud. I am, for example, the chairman of the Egyptian caucus. I had an hour and a half with El-Sisi in New York just a couple of weeks ago. This administration has been undermining his ability to keep Egypt from going radical. That's what this is all about. And if you go with the Democratic Party, that's what you're going to get. You're going to get high taxes, putting small business out of business, and you're not going to get prosperity, and you're not going to get security. I support the Republican position as well as the Republican nominee.
Dr. Savary, you have 5 minutes.
Okay. I probably can't even explain to a man who has voted against equal pay for equal work and voted against the Violence Against Women Act how offensive it is that you attack Hillary Clinton for what her husband did. The fact is, we don't control our husbands like puppets, although maybe some women do, but to attack her for what her husband did is almost incomprehensible to me, that you can't come up with face-to-face issues on her own. You have worked hard, and I understand that, but you have not done the things that make a congressperson effective and successful. You have spent 27 years in Congress, and during that 27 years, according to the research on Capitol Hill, you have tried 309 times to pass a bill, and you have only successfully passed 3. That, sir, in 27 years just says to me it's time to retire. There is no longer an argument to say that the job has been done. You ran on term limits, and you are now here, what, 14 terms later? And that is also not acceptable. You spend your time, instead of doing the job for this district, and I have named 6 things tonight that could potentially endanger people in this district, and these are things you're not working on, but you're running around the world talking about Putin as if he was a friend of America. Kerry today had to suspend negotiations with Russia because they have betrayed what they've said to us so many times over and over again. Putin is the enemy of the United States, and it is illegal for you to walk around the earth acting as if you can have your own foreign policy. I understand that you are on those committees as the subcommittee chair. And by the way, in 27 years, our expectation would be that your own party would make you a full committee chair, not a subcommittee chair. I believe you have worked hard, you have cared a great deal, but the reality is you have not accomplished the job. Those companies that I have worked with in my entire life who were failing because of their resistance to change look exactly like our Congress. 9% approval rating, and I don't care if you're for Trump or you were for Bernie or Hillary, this country is fed up with a Congress that hasn't done its job. It's time for all of you. It's time for all of you to go home. I was at a party the other night with half Democrats and half Republicans, and I said, the reason my friend Kathy, where are you, in the back of the room, has been on my campaign for 2 terms now. Our campaign has been about 40% Republican all along. We got 18 to 30% Republican votes in 2014. Nobody knew me, but we still got a lot of votes. And Kathy and I said to each other, she said, "What are you, Sue?" And I said, "I am a social liberal and I am a fiscal conservative. I am a businesswoman. I believe you pay your debts. I believe that you make sure that anything you propose to spend, you have found the money for." That has been my fundamental life. And it's why my Republican friends and I get along so well. Well, Kathy said, "I'm that too." And I said, "That's why I'm running." Because the simple reality is that I grew up in a town that makes Newport Beach look liberal. And my father used to say to me, 95% of everything that you as a moderate Democrat believe, your moderate Republican friends believe as well. You want good schools, you want clean streets, you want no crime. And those things are the things that you will all work for if you don't let the extremists pull you apart. And the extremists are the people who tell you the Democrats are some kind of horrible human being. They're not. They're just like you. And they believe even more conservatively than you do on certain things. We can work together. And that night, one of the women at the table said, "I have a phrase for our new way of thinking. We should say, purple is the new red." Those of us who believe that we can get along as moderates simply are trying a new way. The old way hasn't worked. So I ask you for your vote and thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, Sue. I'd like to thank Newport Dunes and all the Rotarians who came tonight, both the candidates, and most importantly, all of you guys for coming out tonight. This is a very important election coming up, and I'd like you all to take everything you've heard tonight, go home, research, and make the right decision, but most importantly, get out and vote. Thank you very much. This meeting's adjourned.